Chapter 14 What She Has Endured. The dean shuddered. Mr. Tremont. It's just a one-off case. That tutor is a temporary worker, a temporary one. I'll ask her to leave. Mark Tremont said nothing. There was only the flickering flame in his eyes reflecting his current fury. Tiffany Lane scoffed. Temporary worker? Sure. The dean was speechless. Mississippi Lane, don't be a busybody. You students don't know about any school affairs. Wearing a frown, Tiffany was about to retort when the doctor came out. Patient's family? Me. Tiffany Lane and Mark Tremont replied simultaneously. Tiffany was quite surprised by Mark Tremont's voice. For this matter, she assumed the family role, since she was unable to contact Arian Wynn's so-called brother. But what was Mark Tremont onto? It was well reasoned that the doctor opted for Mark Tremont, who looked more reliable, to explain the situation. The patient is all right. It's gastritis. She is young but in bad health. Watch what she eats, and make sure she consumes more nutritious food. She can leave after the drip is done. Mark Tremont responded with a soft hum, and went into the emergency ward. Arian Wynn was still unconscious, laid on the bed with slightly unkempt long hair. The cool fluid was injected into her body through the thin pipe. The veins on the back of her hand were visible as her skin was a sickly shade of white. Mark Tremont had no idea when she started mistreating herself to such a state. Tiffany Lane stepped forward and spoke with a hushed voice. Ari has no parents, only a non-biological older brother. That brother of hers doesn't really care about her. She eats cold stale buns with plain cold water in the biting winter. How could she not have gastritis? What Tiffany did not notice was Mark Tremont, who looked increasingly grim, as his sheeny eyes were coated with a wash of complicated emotions. She went on saying, her brother seems to have returned recently, as she's required to go home punctually every day. I can't even take her out for a good meal. Isn't that crazy? That is crazy, Mark Tremont answered with a slightly mocking tone. What else? Chatterbox Tiffany Lane was activated. I've known her since high school. It's been about 3 years. All this time, I've never seen her buy new clothes like a normal person. It's as if she comes from the slump. She has worked part-time since junior high. She's done all sorts of odd jobs. Distributing flyers everywhere in the hot summer, washing dishes in restaurants during the crisp winter. My heart aches for her when I think about it. Fine if her brother isn't concerned about her, but he forbids others to show her compassion as well. Now that she can't work part-time, her life's surely more miserable. It enrages me whenever I mention it. She cycles to and from school in freezing winter. Her hands, which are supposed to be drawing, are frozen raw. Mark Tremont breathed in gently. Something seemed to be flowing vaguely in his eyes. Thank you for taking care of her. Awkward. Tiffany was rather uneasy. She's my only friend. It's my duty. I only wish for her brother to treat her better. Even if he can't, he shouldn't stop others from being nice to her. Otherwise he's just a jerk. If I were to meet him, I would give him a hard punch. Seeing that the chatterbox went on and on, the dean dragged Tiffany out, worrying that she might say something inappropriate. Let's go, Mr. Tremont's still here. We don't have to worry. Mr. Tremont will certainly contact Miss Wynn's family and make an arrangement, being the capable man he is. Let's not disturb Miss Wynn while she rests. I've paid the medical fee on behalf of the school. Mark Tremont was quiet. When they left, he turned to look at Arian Wynn. His gaze was somehow powerless as he held her cold hand. Why didn't you tell me? Why live your life to such a pathetic extent in front of others? What are you being stubborn about? Arian did not know how long she had been unconscious, until she dazedly heard those whispered words. Opening her eyes, she was met with a fiery gaze. Chapter 15 A Dishonor. It was a fleeting instant before Mark Tremont's gaze restored to his usual aloofness. Were her eyes playing tricks on her? Any discomfort? His tone was void of emotion as always. Arian Wynn shook her head. Noticing that his hand was over hers, warmth crept up her face. I'm fine. I didn't know that you're coming to the campus. I've caused you trouble. Caused him trouble? Mark Tremont frowned. Don't want to cause me trouble, but it's okay to inconvenience others? Arian Wynn, no need to look tragic in front of the others. Does it cost your life to ask something from me? Arian Wynn bit her lips in fear. He was angry again after a while. Mark Tremont stood up to see the drip was nearly empty, and called for the nurse to remove it. He spared no glance at Arian when he announced frigidly, "Let's go back." Arian hastily flipped the blanket to pick herself up, but the bruise on the back of her hand from the perforation of the 4 drip throbbed with her every action. Mark Tremont took off his coat and threw it on her. His movements were rough before he bent down to swiftly help put on her white canvas shoes. He left without missing a beat. Staring at the coat in her arms and the shoes on her feet, Ariane was stunned for some time. Was that him? This was the first time he had done something like this for her. Even if it was the least bit gentle, she had still felt as if something was about to break free from her heart when she broke out of her trance and exited the ward. Mark Tremont was not far ahead as he stood at the end of the corridor. It was when he heard her approaching footsteps that he continued to walk ahead. One behind the other, they left the hospital. When Mark Tremont entered the driver's seat of the car, Ariane pulled the door to the rear passenger seat open. As she sat down, Mark Tremont's voice came muffled. "Sit in front." Not daring to hesitate, Ariane bounced up and moved to the front passenger seat. Once she buckled her seatbelt, Mark Tremont slammed on the accelerator. The driving speed made her heart lurch. Ariane stared straight ahead of her in terror, feeling like they would crash any second. When they arrived at the Tremont Estates gate, she rushed out of the car and heaved dryly beside the road. When she looked up again, Mark Tremont was already in the house. Ariane entered through the back door and was stopped in her tracks by Mary in the kitchen. "Ari, did you come back with Sir? What's up with Sir? He's especially angry today. Probably would have flipped the door off if he wanted to." Ariane said nothing. He was always angry for the strangest reasons. It was already 2 in the afternoon. Lunchtime had long passed. Ariane felt her stomach churning. She snuck into the kitchen to make a quick pasta, while Mary went about her chores elsewhere. Figuring that Mark Tremont had possibly not eaten as well, she thought to make 2 servings. Bringing the pasta upstairs, Ariane knocked on his door. "Pasta." No sound came from the room. Ariane breathed in relief and turned to head downstairs when the door behind her opened promptly. She turned around again to look at the man who stood at the door, looking rather cross. "Do you want it?" Mark Tremont was silent. He merely looked at Ariane. Emotions were unidentifiable on his sculpted face. No reply meant he did not refuse. Ariane took the pasta in and placed it on the coffee table only to hear the door shutting. Her heart jumped. "I don't wish to see what occurred today happening a second time. I'll make whoever dares provide you anything in the future disappear from your side entirely. You can only ask for things from me." The lingering fury raged on. Perhaps he was further riled up. "I understand," Ariane answered in a soft voice. Mark Tremont obviously did not believe her promise as he fired back. "Understand? Do you really? I've made myself clear in the past, haven't I? Sneaking out to work part-time while I was out of the country. Everyone knows that you're piteous." He was the only one who did not know. Hearing of this afterward, he mulishly wanted to see how long she could hold on before she would come begging him, "Sorry for embarrassing you." Ariane had passed out, falling to his embrace. So many people on the campus saw them. Their relationship might have been exposed for all that she knew. Going along such a train of thought, she assumed that he saw her as a disgrace to him. In the face of the public, he had an impeccable character. How could he tolerate such a flaw? Hearing what she had to say, Mark Tremont scowled. He pulled her to the side of the bed abruptly, and with enough force, Ariane fell on it. Chapter 16. Too kind to you. Mark Tremont pinched her chin. His tone was apathetic, and it commanded obedience. "Go back to school only when your body has properly recovered and nourished. Stop seeking pity with how frail you look." Ariane lost her cool and pushed herself up. "No way." Not saying a word, Mark Tremont looked down at her forbiddingly. Ariane bit her lips. Tensed, her voice quivered as well. "I'll study hard and return all that I owe you when I make money in the future. I'm thankful that you've kept me around for 10 years. I'll move out as soon as possible when I'm on my internship." The truth was revealed. She had never believed upon depending on him her whole life. She had owed him too much, and she did not wish to remain indebted. Mark Tremont laughed all of a sudden. His smile looked like the distant moon, unattainable and unreachable, and unwelcoming as well. "Let me spell it out for you now then. Don't you even think about leaving in your lifetime." Ariane's heart sank. For the first time, she looked at him straight in the eyes without shying away. "Don't I remind you of your late parents when you see me? Why are you keeping someone like me by your side? I'll repay all that I owe you. With all that I have, I'll give back everything with this life of mine, in my own way." Mark Tremont's breathing halted for a beat as his gaze darkened a little more. Ariane had always been well behaved for as long as he could remember, not daring to defy any of his wishes. He had overlooked the fact that she would grow up the fact that she may change. Her strong will would one day become the fortress that defended herself against him. Perhaps even the sword that pointed toward him. They confronted each other with deep stares. After a moment lapsed, Mark Tremont's long fingers went to pull at his tie before he took off his suit jacket and tossed it carelessly on the carpet. What you owe me, you won't be able to repay in this lifetime. I've been too kind to you. Realizing what he was going to do, Ariane's immediate reaction was to escape. Just as she picked herself up from the bed, Mark Tremont's large hand pressed her back onto the bed. She was then encaged by his robust build. Enveloped in Mark Tremont's scent, Ariane's thoughts were scattered all over the place. She pushed her hands against his chest, pleading in a quivering voice. Don't. Unaffected, Mark Tremont locked both her arms above her head and swiftly tethered them with his tie. Once he was reminded about how willfully she wanted to draw a line between everything. A dark cloud loomed over Mark Tremont's expression before he ducked his head to seal her lips. His kiss was aggressive, devouring bit after bit of Ariane's headstrongness and fully subduing her. Feeling the chilling sense and goosebumps on her body, Ariane twisted and turned in a panic. Wherever Mark Tremont's palm touched, it felt like her skin was burning. When she realized that she was unable to run away, she ceased her struggle. Her gaze turned blank as she let him do whatever he wanted. Mark Tremont stopped his actions. He looked at Ariane when he noticed the sudden release in resistance from the person under him, as if wanting to see through her. Taking in the vacant look of her eyes, he moved away and shouted, "Get out!" Ariane's lifeless eyes slowly regained their focus, as tightly hugged her clothes, and fled the bedroom, before she could evaluate his sudden change of mind. Once the door was closed behind her, the sound of things crashing came from the inside. Trembling, Ariane returned to her room. For the entire afternoon, there was not a sound from the room next to hers. It was past 7 at night when Mark Tremont's car left the Tremont estate. Although Mark Tremont did not ground her explicitly, Butler Henry told Ariane she must rest for several days at home. No matter how reluctant Ariane was, she could only obey, as she was not brave enough to challenge him at this time. After a few days, she finally went back to school after regaining her freedom. Tiffany Lane talked nonstop with an arm hooked over hers. "You don't know how bad you scared me that day. Are you okay now? Do you know that a lot of people were dying of envy when they saw Mark Tremont carry you to the hospital then? He's super nice and super gentle. I finally understand why so many people are infatuated by him. Honestly, he's so handsome. If I could get it on with him, I'd be happy to, even if it would cause me to die right after. Also, our tutor was sacked due to the incident. We can see Mark Tremont again today for the campus function. I'm so excited." Chapter 17 Take a Stab for Him. It was only now when Ariane remembered today was the campus function event, and he would be here as well. He had not returned home since he left that day. What would it be like to see him again today? For an instant, she felt a flurry of emotions. Did he say anything that day? Tiffany Lane did not notice her inattentive manner. "Nope. But I complained about your brother to him. That brother of yours is a real jerk." Ariane was speechless. Now she was no longer surprised why her singular reply that day triggered his fury. Like an eruption of a volcano? No. More like the eruption of an iceberg. He must have felt horrible to be condemned like that, and right in his face too. Shouting and cheering came from the downstairs abruptly. Fueled by adrenaline, Tiffany tugged Ariane and bolted down the staircase. "Mark Tremont's here. Let's go see him." Ariane was rather nervous, for she had not yet figured out how to confront him. "Tiff, let go. You can go ahead, I'm not going." "Ari, he's been such a great help to you. You gotta thank him in person." Tiffany was unimpressed as she pulled Ariane down the stairs while she spoke. Ariane, who was still preparing how to avoid the man, stopped dead in her tracks upon seeing who was in front of her. Mark Tremont walked over, and was followed by a company of a crowd of teachers and students. His tailored suit fitted him like a glove. The inky black shade contrasted his skin, making him look fairer, while he wore a gentle smile. Wherever he was always in the limelight. Tiffany dragged forward Ariane, who was still dazed. "Mr. Tremont, it's all thanks to you the other day. Ari here isn't good with words. I'll thank you on her behalf." Ariane dared not look up to see the man's expression. She clutched the hem of her clothes to suppress her nervous state. Mark Tremont walked to her, bowing slightly to take a closer look at her. "You look much better. It seems that your recovery is going well." Seeing that Ariane made no response, Tiffany anxiously nudged her with an elbow. Our senior's talking to you. Thank you. Failing to avoid the interaction, Ariane's line of vision caught the tenderness in Mark Tremont's eyes. Unaware, her heartbeat sped up during that brief moment. No problem, see you. He patted her shoulder softly, an action that was unquestionably ordinary. However, his see you ruffled Ariane. She could almost foresee the impending scene for when she arrives home. In a flash, a strange man in a cap rushed to Mark Tremont's back. From Ariane's angle, she coincidentally spotted the knife in his hand. Her eyes widened as she subconsciously pushed Mark Tremont away, causing the knife to stab straight into her shoulder. Following Tiffany Lane's scream, blood splattered on Mark Tremont's face. He was stunned for a second before he hurled his fist at the man and pulled Ariane to him. Ari, the culprit, was promptly restrained by the campus security, while Mark Tremont sprinted out the gate carrying Ariane. When Ariana saw the bloodstain on Mark Tremont's face, her subconscious prompted her to wipe it. He was a clean freak. It must have felt disgusting. He was even frowning before her hand could reach his face, however she blacked out. Mark Tremont looked murderous, standing in the corridor outside the hospital emergency ward. The glacial aura he exuded prevented anyone from coming close. Beside him, the dean was anxiously shaking. Never in his dream would he have imagined that there would be an accident for all of Mark Tremont's visits to the campus. Mr. Tremont, it's really an accident. I'm asking for the culprit to be investigated. We'll make certain of it to pass all necessary judgment. Chapter 18. Her guardian. Mark Tremont's reply was nothing but a cold scoff. His response made the dean shudder, and kept his mouth shut. After some time, a few bodyguards in black suits and sunglasses hurried over. Sir, we've looked into it. The offender is a fool who's mentally challenged. 21 years old, son of the Southline University's cafeteria lady. He's usually the handyman of the cafeteria. His actions today were completely unfounded, as he was unable to answer anything we asked. Due to his condition, it's highly unlikely to send him to jail. Then send him to the mental institution. Is an aggressive lunatic supposed to be kept on the campus to continue harming others? Mark Tremont's reply came close to a low growl, his deadly frosty tone echoing in the corridor. Yes, sir. The bodyguards left in a hurry once again. The dean was hesitant to speak, wearing a troubled look on his face. Mark Tremont cast his gaze at him and sneered. What is it? Are you unhappy with my decision? No. It's just that. The fool's quite foolish, yes, but he's not psychologically ill at all. He's usually very polite and well-mannered. I don't know what went wrong today. A sane person will go crazy in a mental institution, let alone a mentally challenged one. The dean spoke quickly. Mark Tremont snorted. You can go instead. Cold sweat dotted the dean's forehead. No, you're right. We'll do it your way. It had never occurred to him that Mark Tremont, who was always amiable and gentle, actually possessed a terrorizing side too. If one must point fingers, the blame could only be placed on the fool's misfortune. What had him acting so crazy out of the blue? No one knew how long it had been until the doors of the emergency ward finally opened. The doctor who came out was the same one who treated Ariane when she fainted the last time. He walked straight to Mark Tremont and said, I mentioned the patient's poor health last time. Her anemia has positively worsened, now that she has suffered from severe blood loss. Make sure she's properly nourished after this. The patient's wound is quite deep. Closure of the wound is now completed, but scarring is inevitable. The patient is no longer in a critical condition now, and can be admitted to a normal ward. She can be discharged after a few days of supervision. Mark Tremont's tensed form relaxed, though it was nearly unnoticeable. He breathed out a long exhale. Thank you. The dean sensed some oddity. Even if Ariane was wounded trying to save Mark Tremont, it was unnecessary for the latter to be concerned about the particulars. Connecting the dots back to the last incident, he had an inkling that they must share an unusual relationship. He probed. Mr. Tremont, I can try contacting Miss Wynn's parents again? It's out of place for us to trouble you. This is the school's duty. Mark Tremont was quiet, merely tailing after Ariane Wynn, and the nurse to the patient's ward when the former was wheeled out. Find me the contact information of Miss Ariane Wynn's parents. Freshman arts. Yes. What? None. All right, that's all. The dean called the school in the corridor. Mr. Tremont. Miss Wynn doesn't seem to have reported her guardian's contact number to the school. It said that she's an orphan, so she probably doesn't have any other family. The school will be responsible for her hospitalization fee. Mr. Tremont, we appreciate your help, the dean said carefully, standing at the ward entrance. There were a few seconds of silence before Mark Tremont spoke. Fill mine in. What? The dean was caught off guard. Her guardian's contact. Fill mine in. When Arian woke up, the sun had already set. The neon lights and falling snow outside could be seen through the VIP ward's window. The warmth in the ward compared to the cold outside were two different worlds. Hearing a noise from inside the room that came without warning, she turned slowly to see Mark Tremont working on his laptop while sitting on the couch. The man's hands with striking strong joints tapped the keys softly. The concentration on his face took away some of his usual piercing sharp features, while his lips that were tightly pressed together looked unforgiving. Chapter 19. Personally taking care of her. Woken up, the man closed his laptop and looked up at her. Arian wanted to get up, but even the slightest movement brought her a dull pain to her left shoulder. It was then that she recalled what happened. Mark Tremont went forward to check her wound. Don't move. Arian stayed obediently whilst the pressing urge from her lower abdomen made her incredibly awkward. She wanted to go to the washroom, but there was only Mark Tremont here, and her mobility was compromised. Any minor movement would cause agony to her injury. As if noticing her unease, Mark Tremont asked, "Do you want to go to the washroom?" "Yeah." Arian blushed. Mark Tremont said nothing as he attentively helped her up. His gentleness was unlike his usual self. Even then, Arian was still breaking out in a cold sweat from the pain. Crimson stained the bandage around her wound. Arian had gone to the washroom half carried by Mark Tremont. When his hand went towards her pants, she quickly said, "I'll do it myself." Stopping his action, Mark Tremont stared at her, putting Arian on edge. "Can you stay away for a bit?" Mark Tremont's stay away was simply facing away. Knowing that he would not leave, Arian had a short-lived mental struggle before she maneuvered herself with her still mobile right arm. In spite of it, each movement, no matter how tiny, exacerbated her wound, especially when she bent down. Even the simplest action turned almost impossible. The blood that seeped from her wound had already dyed her patient gown red. When he heard no sound from behind, Mark Tremont turned around and frowned, seeing Arian's crimson-tainted gown. He pulled her pants down swiftly and turned around again. Sitting down on the toilet mortified, Arian was unable to pee in peace despite feeling the urge. If there were a hole on the floor, she would have scrambled into it from feeling extremely flustered. Ultimately, shame became nothing but a fleeting emotion to Arian after 20 long minutes. Returning to the bed, she buried herself into the blanket while Mark Tremont called for the doctor to treat her torn wound, as if nothing happened. 2 bodyguards came to send their meals around 7 at night. Mark Tremont took the porridge to the bed before helping Arian up. When she was securely propped up, he picked up the porridge to feed her. Not daring to reject him, Arian ate carefully. The tonic in the porridge overpowered the food's original mild taste, but it was not horrible. She could tell that Mary made it. Arian was rather fidgety, not used to Mark Tremont's sudden care. I can do it myself." Mark Tremont looked at her coldly. Arian looked down without another word, her long lashes casting a shadow on her face. For each day that Arian stayed in the hospital, Mark Tremont stayed for the same amount of time and took care of her without leaving. He was still as stern and offish, but somehow, she felt that something had changed when Arian went back to the Tremont estate. She could now breathe in relief. At least, she did not have to be fed by him or be taken to the washroom. Under his watch, Arian was grounded to allow her to rest. She could not go to school. She even had to apply for a deferred exam, as she would miss her midterm. Mark Tremont was home early before the new year. Bodyguards held out an umbrella for him to keep the snow away. When he came in through the door, he smelled faintly of the cold breeze and frost, before it was melted away by the heater at home. Arian was just coming down the stairs when their eyes met, parting gazes shortly after. Their meal was already served on the dining table when Mark Tremont came downstairs from his shower. A million thoughts ran through Arian's head as she was seated at the table. They had been conflict-free recently, and she was subconsciously guarding the harmony as well, acting with caution. Recalling the unpleasant parting at night before the campus function, Arian was thankful this accident happened. Otherwise, her fate would probably have ended up worse. The dishes on the dining table were supplemented with an abundant amount of tonic. This had gone on for a long time, and Arian was quite sick of it. But it was undeniable that she did look much better. Her complexion was suppler too. now that she was not out in the harsh wind or sun. There was even color in her cheeks. Her already fair complexion made her look fresh and glowing. Unknown to Ariane, Mark Tremont kept his eyes on her when she focused on eating, distinguishing that she had grown more feminine from her previous frail look. A hardly detectable smile tugged at the corners of his lips. He was the first to finish his meal, standing up to head upstairs. Come to my room after you're done. Chapter 20. Don't like it? Ariane's hand that held her spoon quavered. Looking at the half bowl of soup, she hesitated before saying, Mary, help me to another serving. Mary saw through her little gimmick and answered softly, why are you so scared of sir? He won't gobble you up. After the meal, Ariane trudged up the stairs only after Mary finished cleaning the table. The door to the master bedroom was half open, however she still knocked before entering. Mark Tremont was going through documents in front of the French window with a cigarette between his fingers. Half a glass of wine stood on the small table beside him. Naturally, he stubbed out the cigarette when Ariane coughed from the smoke. Come over. She went closer to him. Is there anything you need me for? Putting down the document in his hands, Mark Tremont took her into his embrace without warning. I'm going on an overseas business trip tomorrow. Come with me. Ariane's ability to think was already affected, having been seated on his legs. When she heard that he wished to take her out, her nerves got the better of her. You're on a business trip. It's better if I don't go. For all 10 years, she was either in school or at home. Ariane rarely interacted with the outside world. She had slight social anxiety, becoming anxious whenever she went to unfamiliar places and talking to strangers. In addition, she was honestly unable to imagine anything pleasant going out with him. Sure you're not going? Mark Tremont's words were whispered to the side of Ariane's face when he spoke, making the situation more intimate than it was, and putting her in a dilemma. Ariane refused to upset him, but she genuinely did not want to go. Subconsciously, she replied in an endearing manner. Nope, I'll wait for you at home. Mark Tremont seemed to be content with her tone as his hand went to tip her chin and landed a kiss on her lips. The refreshing sweet taste of her enticed him to go deeper, but Ariane turned away abruptly. Don't like it? Or don't like it with me? Mark Tremont's tone dropped in temperature, raising an involuntary fear within Ariane. Picturing his anger, Ariane bit her lips. No. Mark Tremont's mobile phone, that was on the bed, rang out of the blue. As if she was pardoned, Ariane got up to fetch him the gadget. There was a slight frown between Mark Tremont's brows when he took a look at the incoming call, but he did not answer it immediately. Ariane understood the situation, turning to leave him with a smile, whilst also relieved at the same time. Perhaps he already had someone he liked, and would want to get married and have children. By then he would let her go, right? That was what she hoped. Returning to her room and lying in bed, Ariane turned her mobile phone on. The festive colors on the screen reflected the jolly mood of the coming holidays, but did nothing to ignite her somber heart. The text message that popped up on the notification bar attracted her attention. It was from Tiffany Lane. Ariane's breath stuck in her throat when she read the text. Well, Savan was back, although she knew that he would soon be out of the country again, as he was only back to visit his family for the holidays. Ariane still felt different. The young man who was untainted, with eyes that contained all the stars in the galaxy, left a deep imprint in her heart. Will Savan and Mark Tremont were two opposite men. Ariane called Tiffany. Tiff, when's? Will leaving the country again? Tiffany's teasing voice sounded from the other end of the line. What's up? Reluctant to see him leave? I'm not sure actually, but there's a gathering tomorrow. Can you come? He's the host. Oh yeah. I want you to meet someone too, it's my boyfriend. Let me know if you can attend. I'll go, Ariane unknowingly answered. The second before she answered, she was thinking about Mark Tremont, who was going away the next day. She could risk going out once he was not here. Chapter 21. Will Sivan's party. Mark Tremont left early in the morning the next day. Ariane had turned her closet inside out, yet she could not find anything befitting to wear. This was the first time she felt the desire to go shopping. She invited Tiffany Lane, and they both headed to the mall together. When Ariane went to pay, Tiffany's mouth formed an O shape when she saw the bank service deduction text on the former's mobile phone. Ari, that's a little too much. I've always thought that you're poor. But it seems like you're only pretending to be poor, huh? You're a little rich woman. Ariane was reluctant to mention that the money was from Mark Tremont, simply replying, that's nonsense. Let's go. The gathering at night was located at Will Sivan's family beach villa. When Ariane Wynn and Tiffany Lane arrived at the party, a crowd had already formed. Ariane was unfamiliar with most of the guests, having never met them. Will Sivan stood out the most among the mass of people, attracting her line of vision almost instantly. Ariane, it's been a while. Will Sivan went up to her and smiled. His handsome eyes stared at her without a blink, making her shy upon meeting his gaze. Yeah, it's been a while. The crowd around them teased. Well, this is the real reason you're hosting this party, isn't it? Yep, what about it? Will Sivan did not hold back. He was joking, though it was not far from the truth. Ariane lowered her blushing face, feeling like something pulled a heartstring. Her heart was dripping and honey. Tiffany Lane grabbed a hold of Ethan Connor from the mass of guests. Ari, this is my boyfriend, Ethan Connor. Ariane looked up to see Ethan Connor nodding at her as he greeted him. Ethan Connor was gorgeous with his tall frame and handsome features. It was just his edgy and socialite character that Ariane found it hard to like his physical appearance. She gave him a small smile, before she was pushed into the main hall with the rest of the guests. The heater in the hall was turned on considerably high, and the music was on full blast as well. Tiffany Lane was immersed in the scene once she entered the place, all while a bottle of fruity alcohol was forced her way. The alcohol percentage isn't too high in this, and it's fruit-flavored. Don't tell me that you're going to have plain water. That's a downer. Ariane took a sip. The taste of alcohol was truly faint, as what filled her mouth was the rich taste of orange. She did not dislike it, thus she took another gulp. Gradually, Ariane began to feel the heat and took off her jacket, tossing it on the couch, where Ethan Connor and Tiffany Lane sat already drunkenly inseparable. Will Sivan whispered something into her ear, but Ariane could not catch it. Stumbling, she fell into his embrace, and she lost track of whatever that happened next. When Ariane woke up the next day, she felt a slight headache. Turning around and opening her eyes, Will Sivan's face was magnified right in front of her. Stunned panic flooded her. Ariane got off of the bed anxiously, realizing the clothes she wore had been changed somehow. She was obviously wearing a man's shirt. She had no recollection of what happened last night, although she could guess based on her current state. Ariane had no idea what to do. This was also her first time staying out. If Mark Tremont knew about it, she was doomed. Before everyone else woke up, she found her clothes and changed into them. Unable to find her jacket despite looking everywhere, she had no other choice than to wear Will Sivan's since it was snowing heavily outside. Scurrying down the stairs, plenty of hungover people were still lying unconscious on the couch. It was imaginable how crazy last night was. Taking in this scene, Ariane's heart sank further as she hastened her leave. On the flip side, Mark Tremont, who was being driven to the airport, rubbed the space between his eyebrows with much fatigue. Chauffeur Brian Pierce caught his action from the rearview mirror and advised hesitantly, "Sir, why not postpone the trip? The departure time was changed yesterday. You've worked in the office through the night, and now you're flying abroad without missing a beat. Your body won't be able to take it. No need." Mark Tremont checked his mobile phone, thinking if he should make a call home, when a news update popped out in his notification bar. A headline flashed, prompting him to press into the article. His eyes were met with a high-resolution photo of Will Sivan and Ariane when lying entangled in bed. The force of his palm nearly crushed his mobile phone as he spat through his gritted teeth. "Pierce, turn back home.